Declan Morrison loved being outside, but in the final 10 days of his life, he was held in a detention suite. 2021. The placements that had supported Declan could no longer meet his needs, and there was nowhere else for him to go. In March 2022, he was detained under the Mental Health Act and taken to Addenbrooke's Hospital. He was then transferred to a 136 suite at Fulbourn Hospital, a space designed for short-term mental health support, with a maximum stay of 48 hours. Declan was kept there for 10 days. During that time, he suffered catastrophic injuries. To Declan's inquest, the coroner issued a prevention of future deaths report.
Hey special family, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, I'm Autismmom. On this channel we talk about autism and everything in between. Let's take a look at today's fair use reaction video, shall we?
Declan Morrison loved being outside, but in the final 10 days of his life, he was held in a detention suite. 2021. The placements that had supported Declan could no longer meet his needs, and there was nowhere else for him to go. In March 2022, he was detained under the Mental Health Act and taken to Addenbrooke's Hospital. He was then transferred to a 136 suite at Fulbourn Hospital, a space designed for short-term mental health support, with a maximum stay of 48 hours. Declan was kept there for 10 days. During that time, he suffered catastrophic injuries. To Declan's inquest, the coroner issued a prevention of future deaths report, stating that the 136 suite was not suitable for long-term detention or for someone with needs as complex as Declan.
There's over 2,000 people who are either autistic or have learning disabilities that are currently detained under the Mental Health Act, and that's just far too many and for far too long.
Is funny, chatty and thoughtful. She's also autistic and has a learning disability, and she spent long periods in psychiatric hospitals hundreds of miles away from her family and friends in Carlisle. Not mentally ill, but remains there because the local care authorities can't find somewhere appropriate for her to live.
It's a deep worry that keeps you awake at night about what is going to happen when I can't try and find some solution for her.
There are currently 2,045 people with autism or learning disabilities in psychiatric facilities in England. The average time people stay in hospital is nearly 5 years, costing £1.2 million per individual. And the main reason for delays to hospitals discharging people is a lack of suitable housing. Back in 2019, the government committed to halving the number of inpatients with autism and learning disabilities by now. Not only have they failed to achieve that, charities estimate it could take another 6 years at least. Sky News has previously covered the scandal of people being detained in hospital, alone and separated from family. Responsible for Maeve's care said they're committed to helping people live independently in their own home or community, and that they work with individuals and their families to tailor support packages to their needs as close to family and friends as possible.
This is so sad and horrific. But let me read to you what this Mental Health Act is.
What is the Mental Health Act? My name is Dr. Jaleel Mohammed. I'm a consultant psychiatrist and my job is to diagnose and treat mental health conditions. The Mental Health Act is a piece of legislation in England and Wales which allows for people with severe mental health conditions to be treated in a psychiatric hospital. When you hear about someone being sectioned, what that refers to is being kept in a psychiatric hospital under a section of the Mental Health Act. Whereas most people with mental health conditions will never need to be admitted to a psychiatric hospital, some people's mental health conditions are so severe and are associated with such significant risks that the only safe way to provide treatment is in a psychiatric hospital. And those risks could include risks to themselves, so some people's mental health condition causes them to severely neglect themselves. It could also include risk of self-harm or suicide, and it can include a risk of harm to other people, for example through physical violence. In these cases, and where there is no other option to provide safe treatment, treatment can be provided in hospital under the Mental Health Act.
UK Mental Health Act is broken. Here's why. There are shocking racial disparities in the use of the Mental Health Act. Black people are 4 times more likely to be detained under the Act in comparison to white people. The way that young people are treated under the Mental Health Act is simply not working. They are inappropriately being put in adult wards and being put in wards far from home. People are being restrained, ignored, and left to deal with a confusing system all on their own. It is not good enough. When they get back to their communities, the support they were promised often never materialises. Being sectioned can be frightening at any age, but this is particularly true for children and young people. Help us raise the standard and sign a petition calling for the UK government to reform the Mental Health Act. Thanks.
And if you think they're not trying to bring that to the US, I urge you to pay attention.
Yeah, because this isn't concerning. New law could lead to more autistic and disabled people being locked up. This bill is trying to modernise the Mental Health Act for the 21st century. Current mental health legislation defines autism and learning disabilities as mental disorders, allowing people from these groups to be detained as inpatients for assessment or treatment. Here's where this gets potentially problematic. Under the new bill, learning disabilities and autism would still be classified as a mental disorder, but wouldn't be included in a new category for patients with psychiatric disorders. And as only psychiatric disorder patients can be detained, autistic and learning disabled people could not be detained under the Act unless they had a coexisting psychological condition. So herein lies the problem. By the time an autistic or learning disabled person comes into contact with the police, it's normally because the community service and crisis teams and mental health teams have failed to resolve whatever issue that person is having. Police will be left with a difficult decision, because before they would be able to detain that person under the Mental Health Act for them to get treatment or assessment. But if they can't, they're left with no other option but to detain them under different legislation, which could potentially be criminal legislation, meaning that an autistic or learning disabled person would enter the criminal justice system unnecessarily, and of course not get the support they so desperately need in that moment.
Ministers will legislate to modernise the Mental Health Act so it is fit for the 21st century.
Here's what we know so far about the changes that the government wants to bring to the Mental Health Act. The Mental Health Act, the Mental Health Act, for those that don't know, is basically the main piece of legislation that covers the treatment, the assessment, and the rights of people with a mental health disorder. It appears that the government wants to make the criteria that is needed to be met in order to detain people more strict and give those that are detained more autonomy, more control over their care, and also more rights in general. Getting detained means you're going to be held against your will, and this normally happens in a place of safety where you await assessment from mental health professionals. Usually this only happens if you pose a serious risk to yourself or to other people. Under the current Act, it appears that ethnic minorities, especially those of black ethnic origin, tend to be discriminated against more than others, and so they want to change that as well. The current Act has also been criticised for how it treats those with learning disabilities and autism. So the bill wants to further limit the extent to which these people can be treated under the Act. The final main thing I could find is that police stations and prisons will be removed as places of safety. So remember I mentioned that the place that you're going to be awaiting mental health assessment, it's not going to happen in these places, so I presume it will be mostly in hospitals now. A lot of it already was in hospitals, but these two places will be removed.
Labour's plans for a new mental health bill have been given the thumbs up, mainly by campaign groups, charities and families. If the bill becomes law, it will mean fewer people are detained under the Mental Health Act, and those who are will have more say about how they are cared for.
Anorexia, depression and anxiety, self-harm and suicidal ideation.
Between the ages of 14 and 17, Afifa was detained several times under the Mental Health Act. Legislation meant to keep vulnerable people safe, all too often denying them choice and dignity.
I experienced lots of unnecessary force. I mean, I was just a 16-year-old girl. I wasn't very strong. Every single day I was restrained, injected.
So she welcomes government plans to modernise mental health laws in England and Wales, shifting the power from the system to the patient.
I felt really disempowered. I felt like my voice didn't matter. I wasn't heard. I just felt really crushed and ruined. Just because you're under the Mental Health Act, you can still be just as involved in your care.
Let me know in the comment section below what you think of the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.